Let's get down to business and let's make our first full-fledged game using Gamesalad. For our first game, we're going to make a clone of Pong. If you're not familiar with Pong, or if you've never played Pong before, it's really the first commercially successful video game ever made. I believe it came out in 1972, and it really spawned the video game revolution. If you haven't played Pong, or if you haven't ever seen Pong, this is what it was. This is actually a recording of the game from 1972, the original console that came out. And you can see it's a table tennis style game where you have a paddle on the left and a paddle on the right, and the ball bounces between the two paddles until somebody misses one, and then you get a score for that. So this is the actual game, like I said. Let me pause this. I'm going to show you the finished game we're going to have when we're all done in Gamesalad. Here's a preview of it. I'm going to be controlling the paddle on the left with the arrow keys on the keyboard, and the computer is controlling the paddle on the right. So I'm going to press space to serve. I can move up and down. The computer serves when it's the computer's turn. There we go. I scored. So let's go back. So that's what this lecture is all about. When we're all done, you're going to have a fully working, fully functional, complete game of Pong made in Gamesalad. I want to let you know that there is a downloadable version of this finished game. It's completely finished. It's called Pong Complete, and it's available for download from this lecture and all of the lectures about making Pong. You can open that and dig through it. You can check out all the behaviors. Everything is working. Everything is fully functional. So that's a great reference. But I want to start from scratch and show you how to make it from actually an empty document, so you can really learn about all the behaviors and everything, how it fits together to make a fully functional game. So let's start a new document. I'm going to maximize this. Let's title it Pong. In this game, the platform I want to make it for is the Gamesalad Arcade. And remember, that's the HTML5 game that will play in your browser. I want to do that partly because maybe not everybody has an iPhone or an iPad or a Nook or a Kindle. Everybody's going to have a different setup. But everybody has access to the internet. Obviously, if you're here taking this class, you have access to the internet and you have access to a browser. So I'm going to make this game to play in the browser, so you can publish it there, you can show your friends, you can show your family, you can play test it, all of those good things. So let's make sure it's titled Pong, platform, again, Gamesalad Arcade. Let's click the Scenes button to get right into it. I'm going to double click Initial Scene. Right now, of course, it starts empty because this is a completely empty scene. There's nothing here. One thing I want to show you before we get too far into it, if you click the Scene button and check the size of your scene, the HTML5 games are always going to be 480 pixels wide by 320 pixels high. That's the size of your stage here. You just want to be aware of that. Go back to game. In order to get right into this and get moving along so you can get some feedback and feel like you're accomplishing something, let's make the paddle on the left first. So I'm going to click plus to add a new actor. I'm going to call this paddle left. And I'm going to double click it to open its actor editor. There's a few things here we want to edit. I want to change the size of it. And I want that size to be 16 pixels wide by 64 pixels high. I'm going to close that. I'm going to maximize this area. I want to change some settings under the physics. I'm going to change its density to 400, its friction to 0, its bounciness to 0.2. I want to fix its rotation, leave it movable, and the collision shape will stay at rectangle. And let me tell you why I'm doing all this. In some game engines or in some programming languages, you would make Pong programmatically. in the sense that you would say when the ball hits the paddle, change the angle of the ball to minus 45 degrees and move the ball at this certain speed across the screen, blah, blah, blah. All kinds of programming code for that. You don't have to do that in Gamesalad because Gamesalad has its built-in physics engine, and I'm going to use that physics engine to control all of the bouncing of the ball. In order to do that, I set the density of the paddles pretty high. We're going to make some walls that it's going to bounce off on the screen. That density is going to be high, and the bounciness of these things will keep the ball bouncing back and forth in between them. I'm going to close this up. Go back to our scene editor. Now let's get this paddle placed on screen. I'm going to drag it over and just drop it right here. And there it is. It's, what did I say, 16 pixels wide by 64 pixels high, which is what I was looking for. Now I want it to always be over at the left-hand side of the screen. And I could just place it here and leave it there, but I want to lock it to a specific X location. Remember, X is horizontal and Y is vertical. I want to lock it in the X position of 20 and always keep it there during the entire game. How I'm going to do that is go into the actor, double click it. I'm going to add a change attribute behavior. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the paddle left's position X to 20. And let me show you that again. When you click this, you get the attribute browser. And it lists all kinds of attributes for the whole game, for a specific device if you were using an iPad or an iPod or the mouse or the keyboard, and for the individual actor that you're in. Because I wanted to lock the paddle's position X to 20, I went to position X. You can have X or Y. I went to X, double click that, and then you can set it to any number you want. And let me show you how that works. If I drag this over here where it's clearly in the center of the screen and click preview, it's not in the center anymore. It's over here on the left. And the reason that is because I locked it to position 20. If I change this to, say, 200, that's going to put it more back towards the middle of the screen. So there it is. It's way over to the right, almost centered in the screen. So let me turn that back to 20. Now let's comment this. I'm going to call it lock my position to 20. Now I want to do one more rule here before I finish up the first part of the Pong lecture. I want to add a rule to make the paddle move up on screen when we push the up arrow. So I'm going to add a rule. I'm going to say when actor receives event, key, click the keyboard button to bring up a map of the keyboard. I'm going to say when the up arrow is pressed, that is when the up arrow on the keyboard is pressed down, I want to move the paddle. I'm going to grab a move behavior and drag it in here. I want it to move directly up the screen, so that's 90 degrees. And you'll see this little arrow points up. I'm going to set the speed just down a little bit. I'm going to set it to 250. Then I want this actor to move relative to the screen. And I'll show you what that is right now. Relative to the screen means the top of this window will always be the top of the screen. The bottom will always be the bottom. And that really doesn't matter for a web game like we're making here. But if you were making a game for an iPad or an iPhone or some mobile device where you can rotate the device around, that becomes more important in that case. So let's preview this and see if that up arrow works. And it does. It moves the paddle up. I moved it off screen and I can't move it back down because I haven't assigned the down arrow yet. And that's where we'll pick up the second lecture for Pong. I'm going to add the down arrow functionality and add some other elements to the game. So I'll see you back in the second lecture.